All right, everyone, welcome to the Rock Fantasy Files, this special edition, which are called Hostile Takeover session with the special, like, other kind of name for it, the Ovi's Kitchen of Doom and Despair. So I'm your host, Denny Sasquatch Bard, replacing Steven Keeler, who's probably either playing pinball or at a concert, or I don't know what he's doing. He's taking a break. So we're the four of us today to go through this episode. It's going to be a bit of an up close and personal. Usually we have like 9 people, but today we're going to go through this the four of us. So
Everybody's at Maryland Death Fest.
everybody's at Maryland Death Fest. Why are we not there? Fuck. Anyway, it's okay. It's okay. We got to have some fun. Today we're going to talk about Canadian trash and European trash, non-German. So no Sodom, no Creator, no Destruction, no Tankard. You'd make your mark into metal when you have to have the clause where you can't use these band because, it would be like endless pain all night, but whatever. So we're going to talk about that. With us today, we have like from Norway, Ove, the kitchen, the cook, who's been like helping us find topics that we want to talk about and try to make some fun episode when Mr. Keeler is not there and we don't have to do like another Iron Maiden against Judas Priest part 72 battle. so we can do something different today. We have the historian, Mr. Ralph, Count Ralfus. How are you, bud? Yeah.
Good.
And we have down in North Carolina our good friend, Miss Tony Dio, who's going to be
Yo,
with us today as well. Um, so let's kick it. When we because it was a difficult assignment, and it's because it's his fault, it's Ovi's fault. We're gonna go and start with Ovi. So what we're gonna do first? Let's do your top 3 personal favorite Canadian thrash album first, and then we'll
All
take
right.
round because there's only 4 of us, so we have time.
mm,
Ovi, you're up.
So so my number three is Overthrow with Within Suffering from 1990.
Very
I
nice.
found that album really good. It was so brutal and it's so good. I'm like, how can I didn't discover this album earlier? But I'm like, whew.
This
So
is
that was
definitely like an underrated gem that people don't talk about often enough.
yeah.
Agreed.
And for number two, I have Dioxin with First Among Equals.
Yeah, another band that's definitely like not spoken enough, but are really good.
I just like the logo with the skull and everything. It's like, and the music is so like technical and so good. I'm like, how can people not know about this band? It's a wonder beyond me. Uh, my number one though, I've been listening all week and I decided on this. I think was it yesterday or the day before, and like just had to focus and like get my thoughts together and like this album I have to go for, and it's Anonymous with Nivoku, I think it's called.
Yeah, anonymous. Yeah, anonymous. Yeah, yeah, from Quebec. Yes.
There's Nivu Ni Kunu, or how it's said. I don't know, my French isn't that good, but it's such a good album. I mean, like it's so technical and got so many good riffs, and the vocalist is so like aggressive, and it's like it strikes you right in the face. It's like pow. So it's
Yeah.
like from start to finish. I just love it.
Yeah,
What
these
year
guys.
is it from? What year is that from?
88,
Gotta be.
89.
Yeah, they've been around for a very long time. They sing like mostly in French, sometimes they sing in English as well, I think.
I think the second album they have some.
Yeah,
I don't see it.
they
Well, that's
all have
my top three at least.
they now play in multiple other bands as well. Like they have like there's like they're kind of like Voivod, do a lot of other like musical venture in Quebec with all kind of different like genre music or outside of Quebec as well. But yeah, they're really big in Quebec for sure.
Yeah, it was something else. It was really cool.
Yeah. All right. So that's your three pick. We'll come back to your wild card after because we have time. All right, my friend Ralph, what's your three selections?
Sorry, Ralph.
All
It's from
right.
'94. It's from '94, 1994.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't remember. I didn't recall that band from the '80s, but I heard the name before, but I didn't think it went back that far. But all right. So yeah, first I'm gonna go with Sacrifice Forward to Termination. Most people would probably put Torment and Fire, the first album, but I just something about this Forward to Termination. It really caught my ear back in the day. The first album was great, but it was just like great for being super heavy for that at that time and stuff. But when Forward Determination came out, for me it was like a little bit of a step up in production wise. Everything was a little clearer. Um, just a really solid album. I loved every song on this album, and they're one of those few bands that I never got to see. I know they're still playing and they're doing a show in on the East Coast with like Whiplash and Sodom coming up when Sodom comes back around. But so yeah, my number two, I'm gonna go with DBC, Dead Brain Cells, sort of like
Really good.
crossover, but it's definitely thrashing as hell. You know, some of these bands you got, it's like they could go in different categories, but their second album is more of a experimental album, thrash album, but both of them are great. I usually can't listen to one without listening to the second one. It's one of my favorite albums ever. It's one of those albums I just never stopped playing since I got these albums when I was a kid. They never got old. I got to see them on the Universe tour. I got the demo anthology and the special editions of these on CD. They got extra songs and stuff on them.
They're the Die Bomb versions. Die Bomb Records. Are they the Die Bomb Records versions that came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, Die Bomb Records. Yeah, these were great. They were very limited, so I jumped on them right away. And I always wanted to get this. They had the one album was like Unfinished something, or it was like they put out songs that they just didn't release back then. But this has got all of them, and then it's got the demos on it. So finally, great to have like a real copy of that. And my number one, I got to go wearing a shirt, Voivod, Killing Technology. It's my favorite album by them. The first two albums are just unbelievable for the time. It was so brutal and heavy. But this for me is the album where they really start like venturing out and becoming more of their own sound. And it's really the beginning of all that. It's just it's incredible. Going back to it today, it still sounds so fresh. They're doing stuff that still no one sounds like this album. This copy signed by Away and Snake. Hard to see it, but yeah, I even got a tattoo from this album that's on my shirt. Love this band, and this is the album that has always been my favorite by them. So that's my three.
So good.
Is that a concept? Is that a concept album?
I mean, almost everything they did was a concept. They created their own world. They created a world. All of it's kind of connected, even though if the music's not connected. All done by Way, great artwork. He had such a vision. And to this day, there's nobody like them. I mean, you'll hear things that someone will say, oh, that sounds like a Voivod part, they'll say, or something. But there's no band that's like Voivod. You know, they are one of a kind, and they're so unique. I remember when I got that album, I loved the early stuff just because I was into everything that was super heavy. But when this came out, it was like, wow, what is this? It really stood out, and they became one of my favorite bands when that album hit. I still love it today. I never get tired of it. Just listened to it the other day. Still fucking amazing.
It's almost similar to the Sacrifice transition from Torment and Fire to like Forward to Turn. Like it's almost like just as heavy, but now more polished and just getting better with because I know when they went to Berlin to record Roar, they were having some they had some difficulties with the sound, and the song did not come across as the way that we with the same power that we used to listen to them in the jam space. But when Killing Technology came out, that they finally captured that fucking like the essence of their sound. War and Pain to my ears sound better than War.
Me too.
And they did it with like $600 or something.
Better.
Yeah, it's a better record.
Roar was more muddied, like it got muddied for Roar. Where I always liked the way War and Pain sounded better. It's a little clearer sounding. But there's a lot of thrash bands that did that. Like I remember From Pleasure to Kill, The Terrible Certainty. That again was that same thing. Both great albums, but what a difference the production makes for Terrible Certainty. It gives it a whole nother vibe. Some people will say that's their first album, their favorite album. Some people want to go with the one before it. It's all a matter of taste, but something about I had Torment and Fire and I thought it was great. And it was the same thing like with Voivod, it was super heavy. But then when Forward Determination came out, I heard it in someone's car and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, oh wow, I got their first album. I didn't think this would be their second album. It really blew me away. And I ran out and bought it on cassette and then I got it on vinyl. And I've always loved that album.
Yeah, good pick, man. That's I think a lot of people think Killing Technology probably their best record. It's even though they have another fucking 6 records that you could debate that it's probably their best record as well. All right, thank you so much. And Tonio, you're up.
Yeah, so I was trying to put this list together, and you know, I have this situation where I have to separate speed metal from thrash metal. And there is a big difference. We all know that, you know, some of these bands cross over and they have crossover and they have albums that have speed metal songs and thrash songs, especially their earlier stuff. So, I mean, you know, immediately I was like, oh, Exciter. And I was like, no, Exciter's not thrash. There's speed metal because Exciter is one of my favorite bands of all time, period. Yeah, and I was like, no, they're not thrash. You know, they've never really been thrash. It's not that tight, palm muting type riffs, you know, and there is it's just fast paced traditional metal that's more noisy, has more in common with Motorhead. That's like when people throw Motorhead into the thrash metal thing. I never understood that one. But so I'm going to start out with the first Razor that I ever got. I remember this guy made me a cassette and he had put this Evil Invaders on, and I love that album cover, but I'm not going to go with that one as my favorite one. My favorite one, I think, is going to definitely be this Violent Restitution. It's just, this is like so thrash when they got to this point. It's like I was saying earlier about the mix of speed metal and thrash. You get that a lot on the Evil Invaders and the one after it. But this one is like full on thrash. Just so many cool songs. I mean, I love Behind Bars. I love I'll Only Say It Once. And then, of course, Enforcer, we were talking before we went on the air about anthems. I mean, Enforcer is such an anthem, you know, on this album. So, yeah, so this one's one I'm going to go with for Razor. Ralph was talking about Sacrifice. Yeah, I got to throw Sacrifice in. I mean, I love Torment and Fire. I love Forward Determination. But Soldiers of Misfortune might be their more transitional record. I think they went a little more progressive on this one, but this is the first one I ever got. I mean, I saw the video for the title track on MTV. They had a music video for it, and so I went out and bought it. And this is just the one that I always go back to, even though I do love these other ones. And I did get to see them once. They played, I think it was 2014. They played Maryland Death Fest, so I finally got to see them, and that was really cool. But this one's got some great songs on it. I mean, the title track, of course. I mean, the opening track, As the World Burns, In Defiance is another great one. I mean, everything on this album is great. There's a song that's kind of a slower one. It's called A Storm in the Silence, and that's a really cool one on here as well. But so Soldiers of Misfortune is going to be my favorite one from Sacrifice. And my number one, I'm wearing the T-shirt, Alice in Hell by Annihilator. When I first heard this album, I was blown away. I remember the ads in like Hit Parade or RIP or something said Canada's answer to Metallica. So I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. I'm going to go buy this. And I mean, that opening piece of Crystal Ann into Alice in Hell, I mean, you got to play them together. You can't play Alice in Hell, not have the acoustic Crystal Ann opener. And I mean, Jeff Waters is just a master. He's a riff master on this. So many great riffs on this album. It's their best record. They never topped it, if you ask me. Just so many great songs on here. Burns Like a Buzzsaw Blade is just great. And Schizos Are Never Alone, Part 1 and 2. I even have
World Salad.
Word Salad. Yep. Well, Word Salad. Here we go. This is a promo single for Word Salad.
Sweet.
And it's got Human Insecticide Live as a B-side on it as well. And I followed these guys, man. I loved them. I loved the next record as well that they did, Never Never Land. And I followed them up till all through their records, and even when Jeff Waters was singing there and they were doing some more experimental stuff. But I followed them up through 2002 when they had Randy Rampage came back for a little bit, did one album with him. Then they ended up getting dude from Liege Lord, that Joe Commode from Liege Lord came in, did a few albums with them. Waking to Fury was the last one that I got, 2002. After that, I just wasn't into what Jeff was putting out. I didn't like the singer that he had, and I've checked out some of the more recent stuff. He's singing again, and it's better, but they'll never top Alice in Hell. That's their masterpiece for sure.
What
So,
year
yeah.
did that come out, Tony? What year did Alice in Hell come out?
89, I believe it is. Yeah, 89.
I always hear people talk great stuff about that album. And I remember their video back then when it came out and stuff, but none of my friends were into them. And I always think about, well, how come I never got into that? And that's because 1989, I was already like Morbid Angel. And
Exactly. Yeah.
So like, it's always like a year thing for me why I didn't maybe like something or something. So I was just wondering, like, I have it on cassette. I have that album on cassette, and I just never really gave it a good deep dive because it's easy to go back now. But at that time, I just wasn't into that. And then
yeah,
same thing like with Exciter, I was thinking of Exciter, and they definitely have thrash metal parts throughout their first 3 albums. There's times where they are hitting the thrash metal mark, but I agree they're more of what you'd be a speed metal band. And there's bands like Overkill that I feel that way. Metal Church, they got their thrash
Anvil.
parts, but I think that's a great episode we got to do one day. Is it thrash metal or speed metal? Speed metal is such a blurry topic, you know. It's like there's so many bands.
Set the record straight.
Yeah, most for me, speed metal is a traditional metal band that gets fast at times, and it's not quite thrash. But Exciter, there's times where like Long Live the Loud and stuff. That there's thrash parts to that.
There's some thrash parts on Long Live the Loud. I'll say that. That was around the time that thrash had gotten big, and I think they really were trying to go for that on that particular album. But the first 2 are like full on speed metal, you know.
Yeah.
And some traditional metal type stuff in it.
That Soldiers of Misfortune, I got it on CD. None of my friends like that. That was like almost like they saw it. It wasn't like they really saw that. It's got better production. They progressed a little bit, but at the time, again, we were just getting so much death metal was hitting us that we didn't keep up. At least being one of the heavier thrash bands, like all of a sudden, all those bands got cut out. Any band that went a little lighter than their last album, they just disappeared for years. But I go back to that album and I think it's great, but at the time it just passed right by.
And you're saying what we're talking about, what falls in what category. I had the same issue when it came to the European thrash bands, because I mean some of the bands I was like, well, a lot of them fall under the death metal category, like Carcass and Cancer. They're thrash, but they are a little more leaning towards death metal, But those records, well, not Carcass was more grindcore at first, but like Cancer, they were full on thrash, but they had more aggressive vocals, so they got thrown into the death metal category.
When Carcass evolved, they went more into a thrash metal world. They lost the grindcore part. They became more like a creator.
Necroticism.
And there's a lot of bands we could talk about like that a lot of that travel that line like that,
Did you ever listen to the Annihilator demos?
Yes. They released them on the Bag of Tricks CD as the demos. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the stuff is pretty fucking good.
I mean, Phantasmagoria, the original version, is like so killer. I mean, the one that's on the second album that they did with Cove and Farr singing is good, but I like the original so much better.
Yeah, you know, like when we our manager gave us the demos for Annihilator, and then you know we knew right away that that guy could play guitar and that he was gonna do. We had a conversation, me and Jeff Warner, about merging Aggression and Annihilator. Basically, he wanted me, my our bass player Doug, and our drummer Gate. He loved Gate's drumming, and he wanted us, because they were in Ottawa and Montreal. They wanted to merge, but you know, we decided not to do it. Probably best decision he ever made, not to like have us fucking join, because I think Annihilator would have sound maybe slightly different. But yeah, uh, great
Did
band,
they
great guitar
did
player.
did they have an offshoot band? They had a song called La Guia. Did they have an offshoot band called that for a while or something with some of the members?
I think they had like I think Jeff at some point, if I remember correctly, he wanted to do something like SOD, like you know, like Anthrax had like SOD, so he wanted to do something different. But it never came to I don't think it ever came to life. But I
Now
would,
he's doing like a trilogy of like American Carnival or American history. It's like going to be a trilogy about. It's kind of a hard rock kind of.
Talking
I don't
about that
know.
hard rock record he just put out. He's got
Yeah, it's
some new
number one or
project.
number. Yeah, it's the trilogy that he's going to give out.
no.
Okay. Yeah, someone was telling me about some hard rock project that he was doing now.
Yeah, well, it's kind of weird, but it's kind of carnival-y with the kind of, I don't know. Well, I got Ed Farsley's picks. I'm just going to jump ahead before you, Dennis. And he wanted, he has Razor Execution Song and Excited with Audience and Force. And number one is Voivod with War and Pain. All albums rule.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, yeah, I'll go to about actually talking about Warren Payne. I never have anything here. Like all our like music stuff is all at the jam space, but I do keep this one right here.
Such a good album cover. I mean, it's
Yeah.
evil as fuck.
I will I will never be able to tell you guys the look on my face when I bought this in Montreal, and then I like I would think these guys would have come from anywhere else but the province of Quebec. Like I'm like, where the who's the what is that? Like and like you know, like to this day, like Warriors of Ice, Nuclear War, Blower, Black City, Iron Gang, Warren Payne, like all of it, like it's so that's my pick number three. It really transports me to a time in my life where, like, you know, music, thrash, and every, you know, it was more than just music for us. It was a way of life. And this is like fucking like yeah, it's so good. Um,
I saw him live last summer, and they sounded just the same as I've heard videos from the 80s, and they sound just the same.
they're just like transition from Piggy to Dan. I mean, they could not have picked up a better guy to do the job. It's so crazy.
Yeah, they played Nuclear War when I
Really
saw them
nice.
recently.
Amazing. It's such a
Yeah.
good song. I uh I had the same problem as you, Tony. Like I was you know, I in my mind, like, you know, Exciter and Anvil, they're like older, it's more like metal, but just fast metal. So I would never go and put that into trash. But yeah, this Voivod record, like I it's gotta be in there for sure. My number two pick was Razor Evil Invaders. I love Sheepdog. The guy's voice is just like, he sounds like a bum, you know, like a guy that's gonna go and like just like he's got a cigarette, cut off jean jacket, and just wants to fight you. And he was so like, yeah, he was so like cocky and like, you know, but he had a presence. He had a really like he had a rock star presence to him. Like and like Cross Me Fool, Evil Invaders. I mean, it's the essence of like Canadian thrash, Razor and Dave Carlo, like, kind of started it all, and the riffs, and then even the album after, like even more thrash than that. But Evil Invader is definitely for me number
Did you
two.
play shows with them, Denny? Did Gresham play shows with them back in the
Oh
day?
yeah, yeah, we did, and we played like some a little bit later as well, like mid 2000s. And I always love talking with Dave Carlos. Super nice guy. Doesn't fit the trash profile at all, but like what comes out of his like guitar, so good. Yeah, we played with them, and they like they just were like they were like just as good as like any other like US European counterpart at the time. The drummer had like a hard time to do the beat, like so like Ambro from Razor and Ventor from Creator, both drummers like couldn't do that's like the full like trash beat with the full so they would cheat and do a scissor. Um, and poor Ventor on top of that, like he would throw up, and it's just horrible. Then he came back and was fucking. Now he can do it. Like, but yeah, it was because for us it was like, hey, you got to be like Lombardo. You got to do the full thing. If not, you know. So we used to have discussion with Dave Carl about that. Like, what the fuck is with that? This you got to do the full beat. And my number one pick, to me, like, um, I these guys are so like there's no other band that's more thrash than this band in Canada, and it's Slaughter. The album is Strapado. Uh,
Yes.
I saw these guys live, and like, um, like they were like a force to be reckoned with. And they had like that punk. They like the Canadian Sodom. Like really, when you think about it, they had that three piece in your face. Spend time at their house with when fucking evil Chuck Schuldiner was there as well. And these
Wow.
guys were just like they were just so true, like true metalheads, like to the fucking bones, like um, yeah, and like similar to like Damnation in Montreal that always played like Sodom, Blasphema. These guys always listen to Dio and stuff like that. So, but yeah, cool guys, and I know like people asked them a lot and offered a lot of money for them to come back and play shows, and I don't think they'll ever will, but I like Incinerator. It's such a cool song, and they don't give a shit. Like they just like the attitude, like similar to Sheepdog. Like they're really like like fuck off and posers and like no like what do you mean acoustic guitar, and they break guitars, and they're just crazy guys. So yeah, Slaughter Strapado is my first pick.
That's amazing that you got to see them live back then. I don't know anybody who ever seen them, and the fact that you even there around that time with that short time that Chuck was up there. Oh my God, Chuck
Yeah,
could have made that band. Chuck could have made that band huge. Like when you bring up
yeah,
Incinerator, there's that riff, and there's like four more songs on that album that rides that. I listened to it again today, and it's like that. It's like the same riff for like four songs, and they're all like back to back, like one long song,
yeah,
But they were great. I loved it, but they
yeah.
definitely could have used some of Chuck's riffs thrown in there.
Well, I think I don't know. Like I was there when that's the only time in my life I met Chuck, and it was like in their like fucking like jam space. And
What year was that?
like
87.
It was before
'87 maybe.
Scream Bloody Gore.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like
It was like in
86,
between the
86,
demos.
87 maybe.
It was probably 85, 86 more
Yeah,
because it was like the death demos were going, but then he thought he was gonna join with Slaughter for a while. He went to
Just,
Canada and stuff. I
yeah,
read all about it in his books and stuff, but then he only stayed up there for like a month, and things weren't working out. And he came back and he regrouped Death. I think it was in between like when Mantis and Death, because
Yeah.
Because then Massacre was starting, and he was reviving death, making death his like main priority from that point on, pretty much.
Yeah, like
He got around.
the feeling I got when I was in that room is that like Chuck probably like thought like these guys are fuck ups. Like, like they were not, they didn't get their shit together, but that's what make them what they were. Like they were not, I saw Jam when like Dave only had like 4 string on his guitar. Like he didn't give a shit. He couldn't care less. Like they're just like punks, right? But metalheads.
That's why
Uh,
he could play that same riff. I only need four
yeah, like,
strings for this riff, so I'll do this in 4 songs. But
they used to take their booger, put it under a cymbal. When the fucking cymbal is all like full of fucking crunchy shit, and you you played like they could not care less about like anything that was. But awesome people, and awesome guys. But I just like that. It's just the raw energy. They just like it's, it's just and they had these guys around them. Like we Gresham started to be good friend with Sacrifice and Slaughter, and we used to like after like school, work, whatever, we were done on Friday, drive 6 hours to Toronto and spend the weekend with them. And they had crazy guys, that like used they're like in Anvil movies and stuff. The guy drinks beer to like his nose.
uh,
So you'll snort the fucking full beer through his nose. Like
oh, shit.
and like, the guy from Slaughter would be like fucking poser. Like, do it more crazier than that. So anyway, that's
Listen,
that's
listening to that again today, it just has such a caveman mentality to it. There's such a charm to that album. I love that album. It's such a cult classic. But if you're somebody who's like a guitar virtuoso or something, and you're trying to go back to that album for the first time today, they're probably like, "What the fuck is this?" But something about that at that time, it was really awesome.
yeah, there was so much volume coming out of these three guys. Like, it was they were like fucking loud and like, just always yelling, like even in between songs. And Gus from Sacrifice is that's also like a ringleader in there, and fuck you, your band sucks, and like, they just friends, right? But just going at each other is always it was always amazing. So all right, that's
America, everybody only knows the Poser Slaughter band in America. No one knows of that band. Unless you're really into the underground, no one knew about them.
yeah. Well, I that's the first Slaughter I ever knew, and after that, the other one, like I was like, yeah, like anyway. All right, so that was our Canadian selection. I thought it was going to be a short episode, but I guess not. So
Hello.
let's switch things. We always blame Mr. Keeler, and now we have no immunity against ammunition against him. All right, so let's go with European Thrash, and we'll start with our friend Ov.
Yep. I did really go deep on this in Europe. I was searching all week to like get to know this scene really well since I wasn't old enough at the time, and there's bands popping up in every country I'm searching for. It's like Spain, France, Italy, Finland, Sweden, Germany, of course, and Belgium, and you name it. It's so much. I got trash out of my ears because I've been knee deep in this stuff. Well, I've managed to decide as to like the top albums, and I'm going to start with a Belgian band called Target with an album called Mission Executed.
Nice.
It's a really good band, Target. They got 2 albums back in the 80s, and they are really good. Another hidden gem. Number 2, I'm going to go to Germany, but it's not one of those known albums or bands really. The band is called Sturgis Even, and their album is from '88 called Life Circle, and it's really, really technical trash. It's a masterpiece beyond anything. And I don't know if you guys have heard this album.
Never.
Mm.
I gotta check it out. Search is Even with Life Cycle from '88. It's kind of pink cover with kind of like chrome in the title and stuff, but it's so technical. I think Uden is gonna have a real ball with that album.
You said from
No,
88, from 88, 1988, you said?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
they had a really good album, and they started to change on the next album, and then they went to just fusion, and they went off the rails and kind of, I don't know what happened there. For number one, this is gonna be a deep one. It's from France, so it's kind of Canada's big brother, and the band is called Aggressor, and the
Yeah.
album is called Neverending Destiny from 1987.
So good. Good shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so aggressive. I mean, the French, they don't mess around. I'm like, it's like, how do I put it? It's like you put the worst of the worst, and it's kind of like, it's destruction on speed.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely like really, really good. Really good.
Half the sound quality of destruction and destruction on speed, and just, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. Good.
it blew
Good
me away.
selection.
So that had to be number one.
Yeah. You did your homework. I think we're gonna have to post these band names like in the comments or something, or make sure somebody does it so that people can search these bands.
Yeah,
All right.
I will do
Yeah.
Ed Farfus picks at the same time, and he's European is Artillery with Fear of Tomorrow, Cyclone with Brutal Destruction, and Onslaught with Power from Hell.
Yeah. Yeah. Not surprised. Not surprised. Yeah. He likes all these bands. They're fucking good. All right. Ralph, you're up.
All right, yeah. So yeah, that's interesting picks from Ed. I think and Ovi too, going super like obscure kind of stuff. You know, I kind of kept it. I feel like it's pretty common stuff, but maybe not the first one I'm saying, because when you put up the idea for this topic, you put up a couple albums, and you had the Sabbath's Dreamweaver was up on there, and it made me think of this one, History of a Time to Come. I love this album. Andy Sneap on guitar. Most people just think of him as the producer and the guy who's in Judas Priest now, but he produced a ton of metal bands. But his early thrash albums with Sabbath were amazing. This singer sounded like no one else, and that was one of the great things about the early thrash days, is how all the vocalists sounded a little different. It wasn't like how death metal everybody jumped onto the real heavy vocals, and they all kind of had the same vocals. This guy singing from Sabbath, his name is Martin, and he does this thing after every word he says on this album, where he's like, he throws in a or da, like after every word. It's like, it's crazy. I never heard anybody sing like this. He doesn't do it so much on the Dreamweaver album, so a lot of people might like that album more because he doesn't do that. But I just found it so unique sounding. But yeah, I really love this. Very underrated band. And they've been broken up for a long time. They had reunited and played a few shows. I would really love to have caught them coming around. Oh, that's great. Tony got it out there. So yeah, my number two, I'm gonna go with Corner, Punishment for Decadence.
Nice. Yep.
To me, this was just mind blowing at the time. Some people say they're like the Rush of thrash metal, and that every I mean, this was still when they were really heavy, but they still had that progressive metal element to them. Them and Voivod, even with Killing Technology, those two albums kind of they very even as far as being a progressive and pushing it to like another level. And they both take it further as they go on. But this album still got the real aggressive feeling to it, and I just love this album. I met them. They did an in-store at Rock Fantasy. Here's a album flat autograph from No More Color. But yeah, they came to Rock Fantasy like twice. They came to right in Middletown. They played with Nuclear Assault one year, and then they played with Creator. And
Nice.
that was the show that I got to roadie for, and I got on the bus and I smoked weed with Creator and Corner, and really great experience. But I've always loved that band, and they're supposedly working on new stuff. It's been a real long time since they put out anything. Hopefully they put out something aggressive and they don't try to go too progressive, you know. But so yeah, my number one is kind of a weird one. It was like when we say, "Oh, is this thrash or not?" I mean, back in the day, this was thrash. They were lumped in there with all of it. I got the banner behind me, and to Megatherion. I mean, to me, this was a thrash album at the time. Now you could say it's avant-garde death metal and black metal, and it's everything kind of, you know. And that's what's so great about it. But this is one of the greatest albums of all time, and they're not from Germany. Both of those bands are from Switzerland, by the way. And with the Corner on their Death Cult demo, Tom Warrior actually sings and helped like work with them and produce them and stuff like that. So the connection there. But so yeah, I got two bands from Switzerland thrown in there.
They were Celtic Frost roadies.
Yeah,
yeah.
When we played with Celtic Frost, they were the roadie for the.
Oh wow, that's cool. But they also had a demo out in like '83 or something. Like they go way back. I don't know what that sounded like. But most people only know the Death Cult demo, but they did have earlier stuff than that, you know.
I'm happy you got the good artwork for that album, because over here you don't have that artwork that you have on that album.
They switched the artwork. So many times that's happened. Like you know, Carcass albums when they got re-released, they had different artwork, but that makes sense because it was all dead body parts from real pictures and stuff. But yeah, even like the Celtic Frost and stuff like that, I see it with like a fancier kind of thing. But yeah, for some reason they changed the artwork from that Corner album. But yeah, I seen them a few times back in the day. They were always unbelievable, just as tight as the album sounded live, and really fucking great band.
Yeah, no, for sure. Good selection. We got to do that episode about like trash, non-trash, or like speed, not, because you know I didn't want to put Celtic Frost because in my mind like they're not thrash, but now that I think about what you just said, they were like, but somehow like we're yeah.
Everything that was a little bit heavier than speed metal was thrash. Possessed was thrash.
Yeah.
I mean, even Bathory. I mean, I didn't want to put Venom in because I thought Venom, even though to me, in a weird way, Venom and Motorhead to me really invent thrash. And I know, like Tony said, it's hard to think of Motorhead that way because they have so much other stuff that they did. But those first hints of like thrash come from Motorhead. You know, like they were the band. Venom, and then it's like there's definitely like a stair that goes up, but there's definitely elements of thrash and Motorhead and Venom. But I figure, you know, we're kind of going more full on thrash, but it's hard, like, you know. But I didn't want to leave Celtic Frost out and then be like, you know, like I wouldn't put Hellhammer as thrash. To me, that was slower. But Celtic Frost definitely has some thrash to him, you know.
You talking about Sabbath. I'm sure you got the videotape, the History of Time to Come live.
Wow, no, I do not. That's awesome.
It's a whole concert. Yeah, the beginning of the end is what it is. Yeah, it's a full live show. I was going to tell a quick story about Sabbath. I think it was 2002 or 3. The Chris Jericho's band Fozzy, you know, Andy Steep produced their albums, and he was actually played on the second album. And I got to be friends. I knew 2 or 3 of those guys from Fozzy. I got one guy's from near my hometown, and they were filming a video when the second album came out. And that's when they were still doing the personas, like they were using their real names. They were kind of like Steel Panther before Steel Panther. And Andy was a character. He was like this. He wore like this Christian crusader looking costume or something. But they were filming a video, and they invited me to come hang out. And I was there like all day because you know how long it takes to film a music video. And Andy was there. I was not expecting him to be there, and he was there hanging out. And he's in the costume, and he did some scenes. But I sat and talked to him about Sabbath and just all the cool stuff for like, you know, a couple of hours. He was just so cool, man. Such a nice guy. But yeah, that was pretty neat. Yeah, and so I didn't put Celtic Frost. I mean, Celtic Frost in mine as well. I wanted to because I know that they have a lot of elements of thrash, but I just didn't put them in there. I was kind of like Denny. I was just like, man, I don't know, should I put them in or not? You know, and Venom as well. Denim and
Yeah.
Celtic Frost, my favorite bands. But I'll go with my number 3 pick. Here's kind of an odd one. This one came out in 1988. You guys are from the UK. They're called Death Wish. He has the album Demon Preacher, and
Oh,
it's
nice.
just really good, just tight thrash. I mean, it's traditional thrash. The hype sticker on here says for fans of Exciter, Slayer, and Motorhead, but really, I don't think they sound like any of those bands. But great
Not
album, Demon Preacher. And they had one out before this that I don't own. This is the only one I've ever owned, but I had this on cassette. And then we mentioned Dive Bomb Records earlier. They did a reissue of it on CD a few years ago, but it's from 1988. And from there, got to follow along what Ralph said a while ago. I've got favorite album by Corner is Punishment for Decadence, and just love these guys. It's the first thing I ever heard from these guys. And I remember the video for Mass Jackal that was in pretty heavy rotation on Headbangers Ball at the time. I mean, I pretty much got most of their other stuff. I got the Death Cult on vinyl not long ago.
nice.
Tom G. Warrior actually sings on the Death Cult. And
Wow.
No More Color, of course, but Punishment for Decadence is just a tight technical thrash album. I mean, just great songs. Like I mentioned, Mass Jackal. Just to love the Sudden Fall, Shadows of Lost Dream, just so many cool songs on here. And yes, it's cool that they're back. They've been back for a few years, but I think Marcus, the drummer, has left the band now. I think it's just maybe Ron left and Tommy. Tommy, who was Tommy? Tommy was playing with somebody not too long ago. Who was it? It was like he was in another band. I know he played with Creator for a little while.
Yeah, he was in Creator at one.
Yeah, but I was thinking I heard he was playing with someone else in recent years. But yeah, just a great, tight, technical thrash band from Switzerland.
My friend seen them the last time they came around. I think they played with like Exciter and Violence or something, and he said that they had keyboards on stage. He said it was really super disappointing seeing Corner after.
There was a Pro Shot concert from somewhere that I watched on YouTube a couple years ago. So my number 1 is going to be Force by Onslaught. We talked about anthems early. Metal Forces, just such a great anthem off this one. Love this album. I like the debut as well, Power from Hell. I'm about to drop it here. Great record as well. But like I said, this one leans a little more on the speed metal side, and this one's a little more when they ran into thrash. But this album also reminds me a lot of the first Slayer record. Vocally, the song structures. I have here's my CD copy. This Nige Rocket and Cy Keeler both autographed that when I saw them. I saw them play with they played with Venom Inc. when they were still called Empire of Evil. They did a show together. And I like their later stuff that they did. This album was great. In Search of Sanity has Steve Grimmett.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still a thrash album, but it's Steve Grimmett singing. It's
it's quite melodic, but
more melodic, yeah.
But it has the thrash parts, but it's
still a really good thrash album. Yeah, like I said, I'm a big fan of these guys. They did a cover of Let There Be Rock, a thrashed up version.
Nice.
They did it with Cy singing originally, and then they redone it for the album when Steve Grimmett joined, and they reissued it. And there's a picture disc for it there, and then there's a Shell Shock album EP from the In Search of Sanity album as well. But the one I'm going with is definitely the Force. And what was this? 1987, maybe. I don't see a date.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
Yeah. So yeah.
Tony, quick question about the first album by Onslaught. There, I seen you had like the cover with the red in it. I had doubles of this album, and somebody wanted one from me, and I didn't have time to like look it up, so I just gave them the one that was just pure black and white. Did I hold on to the one that's the more collectible? Do you know?
I think this was original because I bought a dude's collection about 10 years ago, and I think this was in it. And all of his stuff was original stuff. He bought a lot of his stuff at Rock and Roll Heaven from Johnny Z's store when he lived in New York.
Yeah, it seemed like the older one to me, so I gave him the other one, but I didn't like go on Discogs or nothing.
Yeah,
Like I
because
just looked at him. This one
the
looks old.
CD just has the black and white
Yeah,
cover.
that's
You
how
know?
I had the double on vinyl where it was just black and white like that. I kept the one with color, thinking that was probably the one that they printed less of or something. But I just wondering if you knew about that.
I think I think the one with color is the original.
Yeah,
because that's on Children of the Revolution Records is the name of the label.
T-Rex.
cool.
Yeah, after a T-Rex song. Yeah, so
All right. For me, like Europe was very difficult because every freaking album I liked was like in the Exciter, like Acid. I didn't want to use like Acid because I'm like, okay, that's not Thrash yet. I didn't want to use Turbo from Poland because that's more fast metal. I didn't want to use Raw Power because that's more punk. It's
Mhm.
all
More
crack.
crossover.
So it was like, holy shit! Like, what's left? Like, what am I doing? Like, I was removing so many bands I couldn't find anything. So I did go with very similar to number three is Power from Hell, Onslaught, and I always liked that record. And it was surprising to me that they were from the UK because it was unusual at the time, beside Venom and all that, but to similar style that was fast and all that. And we used to have I used to have a demo of those guys and from like early 80s, and I think they were like almost punk prior to become like thrash metal. They almost sounded more like exploited and GBH and that type of music. Then after that they switched to metal. So that's another discussion we could have. Like like when did the speed switch to thrash and how did that happen? But there's
they had that
certainly
different singer. The original singer was Paul Mahoney. Yeah, he had a more of a punky sounding voice.
yeah. So they sounded more like UK like punk at the time. Number two, Artillery, Fear of Tomorrow. Both choices similar to Ed for the same reason. I just really like that band. And then my first pick, you guys haven't said anything about that band, but the album is called Behind the Realm of Madness, and that's
Oh, Sacrilege.
Sacrilege from the UK. Like they had a girl singer.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, like there used to be another Sacrilege from California at some time or somewhere else. So there was a Sacrilege US and there was
DC.
yeah, Sacrilege BC
Mm-hmm.
and then like all that. And I always loved that band and I used to play it all the time. I used to have like actually like Blackie from Voivod gave me the Sacrilege cassette and I used to like just play it and I just like that there's a cool vibe to their music where it's almost like the fast is like retain a bit. It's like a bit of a slow beat to when they go fast and it's got a it makes it like it makes it almost like super proto death. Like you have all those like those those black trash bands now like Midnight and all that. So Sacrilege had that kind of like sound to them way back. Um, so that's my pick for you. It
Well,
was not easy.
Sacrilege is kind of like I would say it's kind of crust punk, like really, really, really hard crust punk from England with trash, and it's kind of like they have elements, and of course Frank Haley that plays bass, he plays in Memoriam now.
Yeah.
And they
But
were a
yeah, I
huge
was
influence on Bolt Thrower. They were a huge influence on Bolt Thrower.
Yep, most definitely.
exactly. And Bolter also sometimes when they fast beat, they have this like they're just a little bit behind the beat a bit. That's gonna make it cool. But yeah, that's my pick for that's my pick for Europe. This fucking episode with four guys will be a marathon. All right. So
No, really quick, I want to show something really quick.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot about this book that I have called Contract in Blood. It's a history of UK thrash. I'm kind of glad I didn't look at
Wow.
this before this episode, but it's a whole book on there. And I opened up to the Onslaught page, and there's that band Death Wish show that they're
Oh,
playing with that band
nice.
Death Wish that someone picked. But yeah, this talked all about the Onslaught and all that stuff. So I forgot I read this years ago, but great book if anybody's into the UK thrash.
Check out in this book about the album, about the band Slammer.
In this book.
Yeah, Slammer from with the work of Idle Hands.
Yeah, I have that CD. I have a CD somewhere. Dive Bomb actually released that one as well.
It's kind of UK's answer to Testament, kind of in a way. It's really good.
Mhm.
I'm getting that book.
Like an
Okay.
index in the back where tell me what page it's on. So I have
Yeah.
to look.
Contract in Blood, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna get it. I think it should be a good read.
Yeah, it's a pretty thick book, but it goes by quick. A lot of pictures and stuff. Like yeah, it's like over like 600 pages or so.
Nice.
Nice.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Ralph, for the that's important. Okay, let's go with the wild card pick, or like obscure or not your top three, but like you still like it. Ove, your first.
For Canada, odd pick. This is kind of half cheating in a way because the album was made in '88, but it was never released. But I guess you, Dennis, had the tape. Is Harmonos with Pieces.
Is it?
Harmonos,
Oh yeah.
and the album is called Pieces, and it's from '88, and the tape was passed around, but it never got released until it was released back in 2019 by the one that gives out the new all the Destruction and all kind of creator, and like real release everything.
Yeah, Armor
It's
Rose
so
they're from
real.
Victoria, BC. It's a Jed Simon from Strapping Young Lad playing guitar in that band.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Good stuff.
I'm just gonna throw in just like for the sake of it, you have Eduix with Open Fire. They had that steel metal drums, the long
Yeah.
drums.
Yeah, Eudoxus. Yeah, the metal fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the guitar player Mark played with Aggression when we reunited in the mid 2000. Him and our bass player, they grew up together like South Shore of Montreal, and they started to learn how to play metal together, like Priest, Maiden, and all that. And then when Aggression was going, Eudoxus. So yeah, I remember those fucking long. We played with them and they were carrying those shit. Like it almost needs its own vehicle, like just for the bass drums. Yeah, amazing.
Ironically, Ed's oddball is same as mine.
Yeah.
With Pieces.
Oh, awesome. All right, Ralph, you're up. Obscure, weird selection from for Canada.
Well, I had Slaughter Strapato is what I had pulled out. So
Nice.
so I already talked about them, but it's cool because I just remember that when I pulled that book out, is I have this book, and this book is all about the Canadian. It's called No Speed Limit, named after the famous show back in the day. But this is a whole book from 64 to 89 of all like Canadian metal and thrash bands and stuff.
Is Aggression in there too?
Huh?
Yeah, is Aggression in it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are in here.
Oh yeah.
You know this book, right, Denny?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're in here, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
been
they
a while
did
since
interviews with us and all that. Yeah, it's a great recollection of all like the back in the days crazy times.
Yeah, really cool book.
Yeah, it's a really good book.
Looks evil as it looks so good. Like the front cover is so good.
Away
That's
did the cover, right?
Yeah, that's the World War III shirt back in the day. I actually painted this on somebody's leather with a paint pen when I was younger. the bass player for Morpheus Descends, he had me paint this
Nice.
really big on the back of his leather jacket back in the day.
Wow.
Great artwork.
Amazing. All right. Tony, you're up. Obscure Canadian.
I'm sure you're familiar with this one, Denny. This one's these guys were from Quebec City. They were on Fringe Records. I got this when my friend sold me that record collection years ago, and he had this in there, and I was just like, "This is really cool," and I dug it. Dissection.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's final
Wow.
Final Genocide is the name of the album. So
Yeah.
not to be confused with the other Dissection, but this was the
No.
Canadian Dissection. It's kind of got a Cannibal Corpse type looking album cover, but it's
Those
like
guys looks like the guys too in the band. They look kind of interesting.
They like we we
It
played
looks like Sepultura.
yeah,
they
we played-
sound. This album to me, it reminds me a lot of Possessed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they were we played with them. Those guys were insane.
They
They were
look
almost
insane.
like the Quebec City version of Damnation. Nobody
Yeah.
will ever beat Damnation. You can read about them in that Quebec metal book. There's a lot of crazy story about Damnation, but I remember we played it with the section from Quebec City, and they were opening for us, and they all came in like Nazi uniforms, like a full on fucking like SS thing and everything. Like holy shit, like what's going on, right? And
They get canceled really fast doing that nowadays.
yeah, no, it's just like they were definitely like free, like mayhem, just like crazy guys.
That's the third band tonight that's been brought up. That there's another band out there with that name, because I forgot to mention this before. Was Sabbath? It's the Japan Sabbath, and
Yeah,
they're actually really kick-ass band. Different type of music, more black metal earlier stuff. But
yeah,
then you got Slaughter with the Poser Slaughter, now a Dissection.
yeah. That's
Well,
crazy.
back in the day, you didn't have ways. I mean, a lot of times
Yeah.
you didn't have the internet to go look it up. Now these young bands that are coming out nowadays that come out with the same name of some band from the past, I'm like, there's a page called the Metal Archives that'll actually show you if there's already a
Yeah.
band called that. I don't know why.
What sucks about it is that they see there's a band out there and they go, "Oh, okay, well, we'll be Blood Incantation, or why not be Blood Immolation or Blood Cannibal Corpse?" Or like sometimes it fits for an autopsy.
We're
a band
the
called Autopsy.
incantation.
Yeah, it's like if it's a major band out there, you can't have Cannibal in the name. Don't have Autopsy. Don't have Morbid in the name. That fucking pisses me off when bands do that. It's a lazy way of doing. That's why you got to create a word like Voivod that people don't know. Even though there was a word that was taken out of the Bram Stoker's Dracula book, but it was spelled different, and then they just changed the name and gave a whole different concept to that instead of fucking put out some bullshit. We're gonna.
Yeah, I saw where there was a band. There was a young band that just came through here and played not long ago. I didn't go see them, but they were called Tyrant, and I'm like, what? I mean, there's like two. There's a German Tyrant and a U.S. Tyrant from the past, but to them, they've never existed.
I'm gonna
if it's totally different music, that's one thing. But if it's in the same realm of music, then you should know the legends that have that name already. If you're doing a disco band called Morbid Angel, then whatever. It's different music. Don't be a metal band and try to do that.
Yeah, the Slaughter thing was because Mark Slaughter's last name was Slaughter, and the record company said that's what you're going to call your band.
Yeah, and at least with that, they are so different. I mean,
and it's totally different. Yeah, totally.
Kind of in the on the metal umbrella, but to me, that Slaughter is not metal. None of that shit was metal. But
it's funny when I see these compilations of all like the glam bands, and have the logos, Poison, Warrant, and they'll have Slaughter. And they use the Canadian Slaughter. And I'm like,
yeah, it's always great. Yeah, it'll be Cinderella, and then the Canadian Slaughter will be right next to it. Shit.
Yeah.
Ralph, I'm gonna send you a gift, or if I come to Middletown in the next few months, I'm gonna bring you something. I'm gonna bring you the true origin of where the Voivod names come from. I'm gonna have to bring it to you. I'll either send it to you if I don't come soon, but if I come out there, I'm gonna bring it to you. I'm gonna give it to you.
Well, I have
Yeah.
read the Bram Stoker's book, and I see where it's Voivod, but it's spelled Voivode, like Voivode, and then
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just kind of when they cut off the E. But I heard that
yeah.
that's where it came from. But I'd like to hear more if there's more to the story.
Yeah, it's a book by a
Yeah.
French writer, French fiction writer. I'm gonna send it to you.
Cool.
It's good because Blackie gave it to me, so I can give it to you as a gift. So, my pick for obscure Canadian trash. I'm gonna go with Infernal Majesty.
Oh,
I'm not gonna go.
nice.
I'm not gonna go with Non-Child Defy. I'm gonna go with One Who Points to Death. That came out in 2002. I love that album. These guys are from Ontario, but they live here in BC now. They have a moving company, like a lot of famous musicians work for them, like George Carr, Corpse Rider, you name it. It's fucking. And the funny thing is, their moving company is called Tranquility Movers. So yeah, one points to that. They recorded here, and it was their first full length or second full length after like None Shall Defy. There's some like that metal element to the album, but it's really well done. And these guys, this album and one of the most recent one they've done called No God are they're really good trash. It's a good almost that but not that trash. So that's another episode. Trash but not that. Speed but not trash. So
Yeah,
that's
it
my
all comes down to like how the riffs are played, the lyrical themes, and there's a lot of like factors that we can talk about later.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Infernal Majesty, like I helped them out for a while in the early 2000s, getting that record deal and then just helping them out. And they had some significant offers from really known musicians who really were influenced by Infernal Majesty, like Satir from Satiricon and of course, the guys from Cannibal Corpse. They love Infernal Majesty. But that album, people should check it out. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
definitely do that.
Okay, wild card for Europe.
Wild card for Europe.
Ove, you're up.
I'm actually gonna go to Switzerland too. But this album was released in 1988, and the band is called Apocalypse, and the album was also called Apocalypse.
Whoa.
Check it
From
out, people.
Switzerland.
Yep.
Oh,
I'm just gonna throw in. I don't think Ed did do Oddball for Europe, but so I'm gonna throw in mine, and that's Paradox with the Product of Imagination from '87.
Yeah, we're gonna have to check this
Where
out.
they from again? I know that band, but I forget what country they're from.
Who?
They were German, I thought.
Oh yeah, no,
Maybe they're not, maybe not, but I was thinking they were
Paradox.
German. Yeah,
Paradox is German, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I remember having that, and they had an album called Hearsay as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were both on
It's
Roadrunner.
really good band. The
Yeah.
Heresy album has that skeleton, and they have
Yeah.
different logo, and it's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool.
They were thrashy, kind of a little bit of power metal thrown in, but yeah, they were cool. Mhm.
Yeah. They're
All
very
right, thank
proggy,
you.
so it's cool. Yep.
Nice. Ralph, obscure European.
okay. It's not too obscure, but I just it's another one of those bands. Is it this or that? In the 1989 episode we did, I had this as one of my releases, and here it is again. It's Pestilence. I kind of consider it death metal, but it always gets thrown into the thrash metal list. Malus Maleficarum and
That's thrash metal right there.
yeah, they both are thrash, and it's like the thing that separates it and almost makes it death metal is the vocal style. To me, that's where there's so many bands. You take a band like Cannibal Corpse early on, and you give it a different kind of vocals, you could say that's thrash metal. So this has got
Absolutely,
like even with Pestilence, even their vocals are kind of on the line. They got that desperate kind of screaming the way Coroner does, but it's also really heavy and brutal, and it could be easily death metal or it could be thrash. But because it comes up on all the thrash metal lists, I have to include that one. It's from Holland, the Mighty Pestilence back in the day.
Yeah, so good, so good, good pick.
Well, I think
Yep.
I can throw in an album for Ed here. He put up more albums than we did pick, and he has an album here by Messiah called "Hymn
Yeah.
to the Aarrgh Melin." I think
Yeah.
I can throw in that as his oddball.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good pick as well. Good fucking band. All right,
And where are
Tony,
they
you're up.
from?
Oh.
They're from like Sweden or something too. I forget where they're from. I remember the band, but I just don't remember where they're
Yeah, I
from.
remember the logo. I remember
I
seeing.
think they're from Switzerland, no?
Didn't
That's
they
what
have
I
an
was
album
thinking.
with Polar Bear on the cover?
Yeah, extreme cold weather.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm thinking Sweden because of Candlemass connection with the
Yeah,
Messiah.
Switzerland. Switzerland.
Okay.
Oh, they're German.
Yeah.
Okay. So my wild card. We spoke earlier about Sacrilege, and you mentioned Frank Healy.
Yeah.
Frank had this band, and this was 1990. They're from the UK, Cerebral Fix.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The album's
Power
called
of Spite.
Power of Spite.
Yeah.
Man, this is riff galore. I mean, they just have great riffs all throughout the album. They had a song called Cult de Mortis. I first heard it. There was a Roadrunner when Roadrunner was really pushing all the death metal stuff out, right around that period. There was a compilation called At Death's Door, and there was Cult de Mortis was on that. And that's the first time I ever heard Cerebral Fix, and I was like, I'm hooked on this song. I got to find that, and love the album. It's really cool. He's got that. He kind of sounds a little bit like the singer for Tankard a little bit, and but it's full on thrash. It's not death
To
metal
me,
at
they
all.
kind of sounded like Sacrifice. I remember them thinking that album sounded like Sacrifice to me.
Yeah,
like
his vocals could be a little bit like that as well, for sure. Yeah, and they had a follow-up called Bastards that was a good album as well, but I didn't think it was anywhere as good as this one. I mean, this one's just full of riffs. It's just great riffs on it all throughout.
I remember not getting the second one because there was a story of Typo Negative going to Europe for like their first tour, and they were booked because they were both Roadrunner bands, so they were going to tour with Cerebral Fix, and they caught wind of some of the lyrics from Typo Negative, and they considered them to be like Nazis and stuff, and they were such pussies to fucking jump off the tour. So that's the way I heard it, and I remember loving that album, and then thinking like, "Fuck these guys," being like little, like they just being like little woke bitches on that, and it's like they couldn't get the joke or the humor from Peter Steele's lyrics and stuff, and to just like make a big thing about being on that tour with them, it kind of fucked the tour up. Like Typo Negative went over there and got a lot of shit from all the press, wanted to talk about them being Nazis, and it really could have fucked their whole career up. And it always pissed me off about them. But that album was great when it came out. It was one of the few thrash albums of 1990 that was like, oh yeah, this is great. It's like right on the line there, and it was good stuff.
You gotta remember though, like England and Second World War and the time after Second World War, and kind of like they are mortal enemies. So it's a very touchy subject for English people. I'm not trying to defend it, but it's they have history that makes them kind of touchy on that.
Very nice. I like this. This is good episode for like people who wants to dig and find stuff they never heard before, because all these
obscure
bands
stuff.
we never mentioned
That's also
before
our
on the
goal.
show for sure. I like it. And my pick could be also like kind of an obscure one, even though I'm thinking they might be slightly popular. I don't know, but I'm gonna go with Protector and the album Golem.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, it's like definitely like a pro before that, almost going there, but like it's really well done. They were from around where Creator is from, I'm thinking, but they were like they have a very like weird kind of career. They have multiple albums. I think they have like probably like 10 albums. and they're still going on today, even though now they're a bit more death metal. But Protector from Germany were like at some point like very close with like Creator, and then Creator kind of like got the Endless Pain. And what was Creator's name before Creator?
Tormentor.
Tormentor, yeah.
Yeah. So I think both bands like either close, like almost did shows together before, and then after that, like they became Protector, and the other band became
Protector has this album cover that's most known.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember a guy playing that. A friend of mine had, after high school, had joined the military, and he got it when he was overseas, and he brought it back. He's like, "You got to hear this," you know.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
probably
like
some of the
third
heaviest
German-
stuff I'd heard at the time.
That's like the third German band that got mentioned in the topic thing. It said no German bands. Now
Well, I
it's
said
like
no,
Not the Big Four, Germany.
but like
the Big
yeah,
Four.
German Big Four.
I was trying to stay away from Germany because you know that it's a hotbed for trash, and I wanted to try to extract stuff like Aggressor from France and Sacrilege and Cerebral. Like it's nice to see those bands. People will be like, "Holy shit!" Like never heard of this stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Next topic, just a quick conversation around that. Maybe one of you guys can talk about it, but beside like European trash and Canadian trash, which region has been the most influential? I'm almost thinking by default because of Voivod, uh, Canadian trash would have been more influential, but I don't know.
Nope.
What do you
I
think?
gotta disagree just because Voivod's the only one that broke through. All these other Canadian bands, like even Sacrifice, they didn't break in America. None of these
No.
bands, Razor,
Annihilator did.
like-
That was about it.
yeah, because they got a video out, but none of like Razor, they had all those albums out. None of my friends had the Razor albums. It wasn't 2 years later that people were going back and finding them.
Yeah.
So many of the bands from Canada that we've talked about tonight, Voivod's the one band that really broke through. And I mean, the influence is definitely important on a lot of bands, but the European bands, they were more accessible. Even the rare ones, people are saying, I remember seeing them in the stores more. And
Yeah.
I think that just for that reason, they were more successful than the Canadian bands. Canada's right next door, right up above us. I should have been more accessible to get that stuff. And even Slaughter, that was like only a few of us got the Slaughter album. And some of those bands, it just Exciter, was a band that broke through, but we're not talking really about them. But Voivod was really the only one.
So would you say like Onslaught and Artillery was more accessible in the US?
Not, I mean, Onslaught, I mean, you could get the albums, but they weren't getting played on MTV or nothing.
Yeah.
But you knew who they were. You knew the album cover, you knew the name, people were getting it. And the same thing with like Sacrifice, like the ones that are really in the underground, they were breaking through, but they didn't come over enough to tour. Like you had bands like Creator coming from Germany, touring every album and doing double tours in America. That helps a lot. I know a lot of those bands didn't have tour support. The bands that came over and toured America are the ones that kind of got bigger. And if they had a video on MTV, that was huge. But so many of the Canadian bands, unless you were really underground, you didn't know about them.
The Combat Noise their albums were very easy to find in the US record stores.
So probably
and the magazines had those full ads with all the albums on there. So at least you would know the name of the album cover or something. But if you didn't if you were on some obscure Canadian label, you didn't see it,
Yeah, I think like Attic Records and like Fringe, and some of these like labels were not as like accessible.
Well distributed. It wasn't distributed as well over here.
Yeah, so
a
like
lot of the stuff that was on Combat and like Megaforce and all, you guys had it licensed there through Banzai. Yeah.
Well, license maybe. Yeah, I'll print 50 copies, but I'll sell like 1,000.
Yeah.
I got Venom singles or Venom albums from Banzai.
Yeah. I think like a band like Dead and Brain Cell who signed on Combat was probably more visible with the video Genesis Explosion, probably more visible in the States
We
than
didn't even get that
Sacrifice.
video. Danny, they didn't play that. They did not play
No,
that in America.
Okay.
So in Canada you had Much Music. You probably had a similar metal show to Headbangers Ball, didn't you? Power
Yeah,
Hour
but
or
like,
something.
dude, it was not like remotely close to like what the Bangers Bowl was. You know, they would play like Whitesnake and you know, like Motley Crue, and that was metal, right? But they had some time. They did play like the Sacrifice video for Reanimation played like on high rotation all the time. So there
Yeah, we
was
didn't
some.
see Sacrifice video until the Soldier of Misfortune, and then they played it
Exactly.
like one time. They didn't.
Yeah.
They did not
Yeah.
play. We never seen the early Sacrifice videos. I mean, the power of MTV back then. I mean, we'd sit through 3 hours in America of crappy poser videos to get one Napalm Death video. But the power of that Headbangers Ball was, I remember
Yeah.
Sepultura coming through. They played places that little garages and stuff. Then they put out the Inner Self video. It was like a crappy kind of like homemade video. They played it one time on Headbangers Ball. Sepultura went from this obscure underground band to being the band right behind Slayer, like almost overnight. By the time
Yeah.
their next album came out,
Buzz.
Arise, we were one of the kings of the scene. And that was all from the one video. Their second video was a beautiful produced movie looking video. But I'll never
Yeah.
forget way that took off after that one video, because people were starving for this kind of heavier music on Headbangers Ball, and they barely played it. It made you suffer through all this shit. You'd have the volume down, and you'd be playing your real metal, and then you go, "Oh wait, this looks heavy," and you'd stop it and hit record and try to capture it. They only had to play it one time, right? And that video though, it really drew them up there and made them a whole new level. And then it all like they didn't really do that with many other bands. A couple of bands, Napalm Death, got videos in there and stuff, but
Yeah,
it was
towards
really powerful.
early '90s, you would see like a Carcass video for like No Love Lost, or you would see the Napalm Death Cathedral had videos. I mean, Entombed, they had the Wolverine Blues video they would show, but they also used to show Stranger Eons as well from when that was
It
in
was
the
all they were showing the earache videos. It was all about the labels. So certain labels were getting played. Anything underground was not making the cut, no matter how much money they put behind a video. If you didn't have, it was like almost a pay to play thing.
Oh,
But,
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm
if
sure
you get that
payola
one
was involved.
time,
And you're
I
right,
think,
like
I think
not,
Cerebral Fix even had a one video out at the time. Cerebral Fix had that, and then labels were doing like those video collections where you get 10 videos on one, because the MTV wasn't playing it, so you buy the VHS and then you'd play the hell out of them. But they would do pretty good.
Yeah.
I remember I got Sepultura with Live from Barcelona, Under Siege, and
Yeah.
that music video, it's so good.
Yeah, so great. Yeah.
the only Canadian bands that, like for a Canadian band, I guess, and Ralph, you're right, to get through would be like Annihilator to Roadrunner, DBC through Combat, and Voivod through Noise, Metal Blade at first, and then Noise, and then after that they moved on. But like, if you were signed to a Canadian label, then you didn't have as much distribution in the States.
Or tour support, no tour support too.
No, no tour support.
So let's go back to Dennis. Like, so why do you think Canada didn't have a metal label that like supported all the metal scene in Canada?
We
back
had
then?
we had a metal scene, we had metal labels, but they just like you know what, like thinking about back in the days, like I think like it was just a matter of like being like entrepreneur and be a bit more like adventurous into like, I know in Quebec, like, you know, because the French factor, like, you know, it was difficult for us sometimes to go out and play outside of Quebec. But, you know, by the time we got offer or we got that Roadrunner record deal, the band was like on life support, right? So, but I think you go through like back in the days, and even like Sacrifice and Slaughter, and even on the West Coast, like Armoros and Witch's Hammer and those bands, like they didn't they didn't tour in the US as much as like Canadian punk band like Day Low Abortion and DOA, which had more success across the border than the metal band. And it's not that because the metal was not good. It's
No,
just
that's what I mean.
yeah, it's just the way that it happened. Uh kind
You
of
guys
like
even
a,
had you guys even had like
You didn't see this album in stores back then either, you know?
yeah, but you
well
guys
that's it.
Canada had commercial bands that were like commercial pop metal and stuff like Lee Aaron that never broke the US, you know?
A ton of them. But yeah, it's always been like that, I think, with a few exceptions. But it's always been, we always had our own thing going on. We have lots of bands that are popular here that not popular. It's the same in Europe. There's some bands like every time I see like Status Quo or you talk to people in Europe about Status Quo, and for them it's like, like
Over
legends.
here, it's like
I understand
it's
perfectly what you
crickets.
say because it's also that language. I mean, if you find a German band that sings on German, they can have 20 million followers on Spotify, but
Yeah,
outside Germany, nobody's ever heard of them at all.
exactly. So
It's the way it
it is
is.
way, but okay. So, like for this question, let's go with Europe. Was a been a bit more influential. Um, so which band from these regions have you seen live, and have you seen as good shows, or which one are on your bucket list to see?
I never got to see Corner. I would always like to see them, but like I said, I would love to see the classic lineup. But I did get to see, and I've never seen Annihilator. I've never seen any version of Annihilator.
Oh wow, yeah,
I
but that
never seen Sacrifice and I never seen Slaughter and Sabbath I never seen. But I got to see Corner a few times. I seen DBC and it was actually really disappointing. Like I think it was late in the tour. They played New Rochelle at this place called the Streets. It was an insane place. People would just stage dive nonstop, and the music and everything was super tight and powerful. But his vocals, I don't know if he just been singing it too much power every night. His vocals, he was almost like just speaking the words. Like to me, looking back, I think if I remember feeling let down because I thought the vocals were so great on the DBC albums, and it just
yeah,
seemed like he had no power behind it. Like maybe could he been killing himself all month playing shows? And back then they were a young band, they didn't tour that much, so they could have easily had a vocal problem. I never heard of what if there was a problem or anything. None of my other friends were really complaining about it. I just was looking so forward to it and singing every word myself to it. I learned every word to those albums, and I
yeah.
still loved seeing them in the show, but I was a little disappointed in the vocals.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I know when they played in Montreal, they was always a good performance. I see them with Creator, and they were strong. I seen them like they play with Aggression. Maybe like 6 years ago, we did the Aggression DBC show in Montreal, and they were on fire that night. They were on fire that night. But yeah, it's hard to like, well, I'm in Canada. Like I've seen pretty much like all those bands live multiple times. And I'm fortunate to have done that. But there's a ton of European band I wish I see. Like all my bucket list band, like for me, it's all bands that are just slightly like not trash yet, like Tigers of Fantang. That's kind of like that's my wheelhouse right there. Like I've seen
Feel the
Artillery, I've seen Onslaught, I've seen these bands. Never seen Sacrilege. Would love to see Sacrilege. Um, yeah,
I feel the same way you do about some of the bands that were non-thrash bands or whatever, like classic metal bands. But so many of them are just down to like one original member, like Tigers,
Yeah.
or it's not. You're not going to see the great band from the past. I love April Wine, and I never got to see April Wine, and I had a chance to see them during it was supposed to be during the pandemic, but the show
yeah.
got canceled, of course, because of the pandemic.
Is there is what's
And of
the
course,
name of that
we
Canadian
lost
band?
Miles. So you know,
Tony, what's the name of that Canadian band, that Nova? They
Who's
called
that?
Nova. There's a guitar player. It's called Nova or something from Canada.
Aldo Nova.
Oh,
Yeah.
Aldo Nova. That's a person though. That's his name. That's the guy's name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his band, it's like, it was pretty big in the 80s, wasn't it?
He was. Yeah. He was from Canada. Yeah. But
He
he has so many. I mean,
he actually wrote a song on the Blue Oyster Cult album. What's with
Imagine those.
Take Me Away?
Take Me Away.
No, what's that album, like something by night?
Revolution by Night. Yeah.
Yes, so the
Mhm.
song.
Yep.
So I saw Blue Oyster Cult with Aldo Nova opening for them in Montreal, and then they became good friends. And you know that guy that hit Fantasy.
Yeah.
Now. Yes,
Yep.
so rock. That is the most rock radio song you can
Yeah,
pick.
I got Ed's stuff here. Ed, he has seen Voivod 1,000 times. He has
Yep.
seen Razer 4 or 5 times, including booking their first ever show in New York.
Nice.
The Exciter numerous times, including 3 times last year. Slaughter, Sadly No, Sacrifice numerous times, including this weekend.
Yeah.
Seeing it.
And
Finally
and for
seeing the
you,
classic Exciter, man, was one of my greatest. I mean, I saw the original Exciter perform at Defenders of the Old in Brooklyn when they first got back together with that lineup, and that was like that was a dream come true to see that, because I never got to see them back in the day. And yeah, I mean, because I was a huge Kiss fan. To finally get to see Kiss with makeup when they did the reunion, I put Exciter in that same category, because it was just like, wow. And the Rods played on that show as well. I never got to see the Rods until that night, so that was just a great show.
Was that Exciter show the full lineup though, like the real lineup?
It was the real, yeah. John Ritchie was still with them then. Yeah, it was the original 3. Yeah, and
I
and I
see
bought
them in
and
the
I,
movies without Dan Bueller, when Dan
yeah,
Bueller wasn't.
I saw him.
I didn't
I
feel
saw
like
him
I
at
seen
the BWBK Fest in Cleveland, and it was just John Ricky, and he had had like a lead singer in the band and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, they played the songs and it was cool, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah,
Damn
definitely.
great. Alan
as
Johnson.
for Europe, Ed Farsley, he has seen Artillery 8 or 9 times, including booking them himself 3 times. Cyclone, not yet, almost last year at Blade of Steel Fest, but their visas was denied. Messiah, he saw them finally last year at Metal Street Fest. And Coroner, yes, back in the day. His favorite live show is Voivod from the Ritz in New York in '86, opening for Venom and Cro-Mags.
Yeah, I was there too. It was fucking ridiculous. Never seen a 2,000 man fucking circle pit for, like, I saw at Cro-Mags, like, and they were grabbing us by our hair and pulling us with them. So it was yeah, I saw a guy like stage diving like the night before. I think it was Overkill, Carnivore, and Venom. Was that
Carnivore. Yeah,
Overkill was playing too, right?
yeah.
And then it was Venom, and Venom sucked. Like, it was so bad. It was not even funny. But
was that when they had the 2 guitar players?
yeah, it's just complete. Like, I saw them with Slayer opening and Razor, and both Razor and Slayer completely annihilated them. It was not even funny.
He also said that Racer and the first Artillery show he booked was among his proudest moments, a show as a promoter and a fan.
Very nice.
And his bucket list band is Slaughter.
Oh yeah. Fuck! I talked to those Slaughter guys quite a bit, but it's just not gonna happen. But it'd be so fucking cool. Like, I think people would want to go for it. Yeah, like it's hard when you come to like that's what I'm saying. Like, we're talking about tour packages going to play festival. Like, like I would prefer seeing like Infernal Majesty at a festival or Slaughter than seeing bands that are touring all the time, all the same band. Like
something to make it special.
Sure. Yep.
Well, even like, like that's why I always want to go see festival in Europe, and sometimes I would prefer going to see fucking Vandenberg uh than seeing again like Iron Maiden. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to like Keep It True because he always gets the
yeah,
oddball bands to play.
yeah. Yeah, I grew up, I was a huge fan of Riot, and I saw like when we played with Exciter at Defenders of the Old, like Riot 5 was playing, but it's just not like the same
Yeah,
it's not the same vibe, like they're all good and everything, but it's not, it's more like the second coming of Riot than like the old
yeah.
like
It's a
yeah,
good tribute though because they do
yeah,
all eras of the band, and
yeah,
that's what's cool,
yeah.
But Mark's gone, so what else you gonna do,
But
That Jack
true,
Polchek guy who used to do the Milwaukee Metal Fest and everything, he had a thing that he did every year called Metal Meltdown, March Metal Meltdown in New Jersey. And they were fucking amazing because it would be 3 stages. The hardest thing was what band you want to see. So one stage, the room would be Saxon, Exciter, Raven, Diamond Head, Riot, all on one stage all day. Then the
wow,
Yeah,
next stage in the middle would be all the weird bands that Mastodon and Dillinger Escape Plan, bands that people didn't know much. Then the other stage would have a bigger death metal or black metal band, and it was just all day. You'd be looking at the list trying to figure out, who you
yep,
want to see. And I remember sitting in like the old stage room, and my friends being like, this band and this band playing. I'm like, I seen them. I haven't seen Raven yet. I haven't seen Cannibal playing it right now again.
yeah.
And like all those old bands, I got stuck in that room all day, and they couldn't believe that I was watching all those bands. I knew I was never going to go out of my way for a lot of those bands. So it was just so cool how the guy mixed them up, though. When I look at those old lineups, I'm like, oh man, I didn't even see that band because I was watching this band, and it was so many great bands on those things.
he had Savage the year I went.
Yeah.
Like, dude, yeah, it was cool.
It's like in France, you have got Hellfest, and it's
Ah,
like
yeah.
200 bands, and you get like maybe 2-3% you get of all bands. It's insane.
Wow.
All right,
I
guys.
found of a
You have
newer
something?
thrash metal band here called Headless Hunter with Undertaker. The reason why I mention it is because they have a song called Hostile Takeover.
Nice. All right, guys, we've been good. We've been at this for 2 hours. We obviously like discussing this topic.
Yeah,
Any last
great.
word before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I can
Thrash till
mention
death.
another oddball. It's a Finnish thrash metal band from 1990 called Statue with It Comes to Life from Finland. That's just
Nice.
my last oddball.
All right. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all the followers of Rock Fantasy Files. We're trying to grow the channel. We're gonna keep doing these like odd, weirder, maybe not Iron Maiden Judas Freak shows. As for when the Steven Keeler is not around and doesn't want us to talk about Glenn Tipton again. But yes, so thank you so much, and until next time, stay metal.